Okay, so I've got Dr. Rabia Aftab with me, who's a salaried GP in North Lincolnshire and palliative care lead for her practice. And she's going to tell us a little bit about how she got involved in blog writing for both Innovate and BJGP. So Rabia, please tell us, how did you first get involved in this sort of work?
Thank you, Emily, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I started off writing for the Innovate RCGP when I was doing my GP training. I've always had this thing in me where I stick my nose into everything, and I was doing a rotation psychiatry, uh, uh, which gave me quite a lot of free time. And I wanted to fill that vacuum. And my husband, who's also in the same profession, suggested that you should write. So I very randomly contacted the editor for the Innovate, and she was very supportive. She sent me a list of topics, and I randomly chose one that I didn't know anything about. So that's how I started a good few years ago.
That sounds fantastic. And led you then to get involved? You mentioned that because you had some time on your hands, but what do you think led you into wanting to write?
I think I always wanted to do something with teaching and training. I've always been involved with teaching medical students, teaching PBL, being an OSCE examiner. I've interviewed at university level for medical student interviews. So that spark was there already, but being married, having children sort of took me back a little bit. And I had all that free time during my maternity leave, for example. So the spark was there, but I'd never written before. So it literally was random, supported by a husband. He suggested you'll be good at it. I never knew I could do it because English isn't my first language. And I'd never written anything before. But literally because I wanted to fill a vacuum as a start, and I wanted to learn something. I didn't want to waste time. So I chose a very random topic. I think my first one for the Innovate was vaccinations for traveling, and I knew nothing about them. So I thought it'll give me something. It'll be something nice to put in the portfolio. And then the positive feedback that I received from colleagues, friends, and obviously when I used to have my supervision meetings with my ES and CS at that time, they were quite encouraging. So that made me think, okay, it's worth it. I need to do more. And then eventually over years, I started to actually enjoy it.
That's fantastic. And how do you fit that around your clinical role?
So having children means I work part-time. My priority is my family, and that I think is a real blessing because I can use the time that I have on hand, especially now that they're growing up. When they've gone to bed, I could use that time productively. When they were young, I did have to juggle time. It was a case of because I really wanted to do it, I made time for it. I would use time during rotations, quiet rotations, for example, like I said, psychiatry, palliative care was another one where I had a lot of time on hand. I'd done my quality improvement projects, I'd done my audits and things, and then the time left was sort of just my time, and I didn't want to let go of it. So I grasped the opportunity and I then used that to do my writings.
That's fantastic. And are there any sort of disadvantages, do you think, to doing this sort of work alongside your clinical role now?
Um, I can't think of any, Emily. I think there's benefits and benefits only. You have to be driven, you have to have an interest. I must say, though, in all honesty, it wasn't an area of interest for me in the beginning. It was more of I'll have something under my name and I will get a publication out of it. And that remained to be the case for the first few publications that I had. But then slowly, steadily, I started liking the reflective process. I started seeing in my writing that what I was writing was very reflective. And this reflection was far different to the reflection we'd done in our GP training, which was more of a tick box exercise. In terms of cons, it does require time. You need to be patient because I remember one or two articles for the Innovate. I remember them having a good 6, 7 resubmissions because something was always wrong, something was always not acceptable by the peers. So they scrutinize your article. It is challenging in the sense that it takes time. My first one took 5 to 6 months, revision after revision. So it does take time. And that can put someone off, but I think the reward is worthwhile.
Fantastic. And you didn't have any particular training, as you said, in journalism or writing, but have you gained training since, or have you had any sort of particular tips that you found useful?
Yes, true. I haven't had any formal training, but over time, I think the experience has given me that self-learned, tips. Um, I was approached by the Innovate team in the sense that they said you could help us review other people's articles, and that has been a real learning experience because when you peer review someone else's article, you really have that outsider view, and that I think has helped. That's helped me learn a lot. In terms of tips, my suggestion to anyone who's interested would be if you have that little bit of spark and interest, and if you want something worthwhile, just make a start. Any topic, anything, don't worry about language. Like I said, English isn't my first language, but I still do it. And it seems to be fine to readers. They like it. Start somewhere, and then you will slowly find your way through. Don't hesitate. Um, uh, don't keep it within you. If you've got something to write about, just go and went and do it.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Rob. It's really interesting to hear your story, and I hope that that's really useful for everybody watching.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for having me today.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.